Let me gently introduce our panel for tonight's debate. The Magic, Dr. Orlando.
Yo.
Pardon?
I said, yo.
Oh.
You're not even going to say, like,
The
welcome.
indefatigable Kathleen Taylor.
Hello.
That marvelous sophistication, Jane Carter.
Yes, hello.
Joining us tonight, Mikey Pokorny.
Like, wow, Scoobs, it's Jeremy Taylor.
And, of course, fresh from the nether regions of Lawrence, Kansas, Jason Springer now.
JT, what's good?
What's up? And we'd like to apologise. Last one we did was absolutely brilliant. It was going to be an award winner, and the engineers and producers and everybody lost it. So sorry about that. It was because it was actually very good. It was, and it's very sad that
Jeremy wasn't here.
Yell us again.
Yeah,
Lost it.
But there we are. We're gonna have another try tonight. Okay. So I thought we'd start with. I want the committee to think very carefully. Please share and describe your favourite scene, one film each. Right, your favourite scene from a film. Let's start with Jason Springer now.
Mine would have to be from Pink Panther Strikes Again. There's a scene where Peter Sellers...
Don't tell me. I bet it's in the lift.
No.
Oh,
nope.
right.
That's not it. Peter Sellers, he's in his office. He sits in this chair, and he leans back in his chair. And when he leans back, the chair, it catches, and it just stops right there. And he can't sit back up. And so he's leaning back, and he can't get up. He can't sit back up on his desk. And his assistant comes over to put some papers on his desk and show him. And so Peter Sellers is sitting there leaning back in the chair, and there's his assistant right there. To get up, Peter Sellers grabs his assistant's tie, to try and pull himself back up. And he pulls himself back up, but when he does it, he pulls down on that man's tie, and that man's head just slams right down on the desk. That one scene, every single time I watch it, I've seen that hundreds of times. Every single time, I pee my pants. It is so funny, just because you can just tell it's not faked in any way. I mean, that guy really slams his head on the desk. It is just brilliant.
It's amazing how I thought you were going to do the elevator.
No, not the elevator.
He goes on with a bunch of hoods. And they all moved it, and it's complete. He's interviewed afterwards, years later, and he said one of them farted.
Yeah.
And it was genuine. The guy just let go a rip snorter, and they all got the giggles. And it took them days to film the shot because they got the giggles every time they went in there. So let's start with Kathleen. Let's follow up with Kathleen. What's your favourite scene from a movie?
Mine's a bit dark. My favorite movie is The War of the Roses, which is a tale of a divorce.
Oh, that's such a good film.
It's a great film.
That is a great film.
And this is when I was married to my previous husband that it really hit home with me. They get divorced because she has put up with years and years of small slights and just discrediting her as a human being. And at the very end, he won't give up the house, so they've been chasing each other around this house. And at one point, she was up in the attic loosening the chandelier nuts in order to drop it on him, but then he moved, so she didn't. But at the very end, somehow she manages to try to get away from him and gets on the chandelier, and she's swinging near it, and it will hold her. But he decides he has to rescue the little woman. And so he tries to pull the chandelier over, and she says, "You can't do that, it won't hold." And of course, he gets pulled onto the chandelier as well, which is too heavy for the loosened nuts. And they come crashing down 2 flights or something onto the marble floor, and they're lying there dying. Okay? Love this scene. And he manages to get his hand over onto her shoulder, because he still thinks, that there's really love there. He puts his hand on her shoulder, and she puts her hand up to cover his, and takes his finger and throws his hand away, and then they both die. But I just
Dr. Orlando.
Like that.
It's hilarious.
That's a great film.
I am guessing that there's probably only one person at this table that has seen this movie that I'm about to quote, maybe 2. It's this little movie called Dune.
Oh, hell yeah. What's up?
There is a scene. Okay, so the whole premise, and this is for you guys that haven't seen it, and for our one audience member, this is your education in case you haven't seen the movie or read the book. It's basically a Messiah story. Paul Atreides is this generation's Messiah. He's in the book and movie he's called the Kwisatz Haderach. He is the coming of the ways.
There you go.
And so he's been prophesied for 10,000 years that he will come and free this group of sand-dwelling desert fighters. Please make no references to the current Middle East situation, although that's entirely what the book is about. So Paul Atreides is the Messiah, and for the first, let's say, 3/4 of the book / movie, he believes, like everybody else believes, that this is a story that's just been made up by the religious groups of the time to keep the masses in control.
I think I know what you're...
You know where I'm going.
I think I know exactly.
You know where
I know
I'm going.
exactly what scene you're going to pick.
So,
I do.
In the book, his mother is a Bene Gesserit witch, and one of the things that they do is this style of fighting / meditation called the Weirding Way. It is total control of their body. They couldn't really do that in the movie, so instead they made the Weirding weapon. So it's this device that basically transforms the sound of your speech or your thought into force. It can turn it into fire. It can turn it into ice. It can turn it into just concussive force. Whatever. So in the movie, Paul is introducing this ragtag fleet of desert fighters to the Weirding Way.
Yep.
And they have like
Good choice. Yep.
They have the hardest material on the planet, like an obelisk of this material. And Paul tells the guy, to try to break it, try to, bash it, and nothing happens. Try to cut it with a laser, nothing happens. And then Paul says, yell at it. And so the guy yells, break! And everybody laughs at him. And then Paul tells him that they're going to teach him the Weirding. He's going to teach them the Weirding Way, and they will then crush their opponents. And so Paul puts his little Weirding device on, and he basically makes a sound at the rock, at the obelisk, and it explodes. And so they there's a split scene there, and from that point on, you see Paul training the Fremen warriors on how to use the Weirding Way. And he's training this guy, and the guy blows up the practice dummy or what have you. And then he walks over and says hi to another guy, and a guy just says Paul's name. He says, hi, Madib. And then his gun just goes crazy. And all of a sudden, he blasts the gun, and like the entire roof falls down in the room that they're in. Paul turns around, and here's the great part about the movie Dune. It's one of the few movies where like the thoughts of the character are sort of superimposed on it's very comic booky. So you hear Paul saying in his mind, my name is a killing word. And that's just like, that's the moment where Paul has realized that like there's something special about him, that he is possibly the one. He's possibly the Messiah. And it's just like after an hour and a half of this movie, all of these things that happen to him are coming together at this point, and that is the scene where he realizes, holy shit, it might be me. And so that is probably my favorite. And every time I see that scene, literally the goosebumps start down here and just work their way up my back.
Mikey.
Oh, that's a good one.
I don't remember the name of the movie, but I know what it was about. Okay, help me. Hang on to your answers. It'll come to me. It was about a bus that was speeding, and there was a bomb, and if the
Gene
buses
Wilder.
I think
buses speed
Was
drop
there a
below
wildcat
55
driving the
miles
bus?
an hour, it would explode, and it had to maintain a speed of 55 miles an hour, and there would be death to everybody.
You're thinking of Meatballs.
I think it was called The Bus That Couldn't Slow Down.
Maybe that was it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, other than that, it's definitely the scene from Ghostbusters where they bust Slimer, or Stand By Me when they all get the leeches on their dick.
Actually, just one of them gets a leech on his dick.
Yeah, that was only Will Wheaton who had that happen.
Will Wheaton.
Jane.
Okay, mine is definitely going to have to be a scene from The Princess Bride when when Wally Shawn, Andre the Giant, Robin Wright Penn is being followed by Carrie Elwes, and who am I missing? Oh, Inigo Montoya.
Inigo Montoya.
Yeah, Mandy Patinkin.
Mandy Patinkin.
Okay, sorry, I don't know why I had to get that right, but I did. Anyway, they're climbing the cliffs of insanity. Actually, Andre the Giant is climbing the cliffs of insanity, and he is carrying all three people on his back and sides up a rope. Up the really, really steep cliffs that kind of look like...
Oh, Fezzik.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. So then Carrie Elwes, the man in black, starts climbing up right after them. And Wally Shawn is very pissed that he's getting faster and faster. And so he yells at Andre the Giant, "Faster! Faster!" And Andre says, "I thought I was going faster." "You're supposed to be just Colossus. You were this great legendary thing, and yet he gains." "Well, I'm carrying three people, but he's got only himself." "I do not accept excuses. I'm just gonna have to find myself a new giant, that's all." "Don't say that, Zini, please." I love this scene, and it pops up so many times, all the time. And if I'm not quoting it, I'm thinking about it. That's it.
For me, there's lots of scenes from Young Frankenstein, but there's one where my favourite guy, Mel Brooks, is playing the part of a doctor or surgeon, and he's demonstrating to trainee surgeons with his lady sidekick how to do it. And so he's got the corpse out in front of him, and he's got a knife. And he pops out and he pulls out something like that, and three of them go down, and there's like 5 left. So he rustles around inside this body, and he's slurping and making all sorts of lovely noises, and he pulls out a kidney, right? And another 3 go down. So eventually he keeps doing this. There's only one left, right, who's a real geeky one. When he looks at the nurse, and the nurse looks at him, and he's going... Oh. So he goes in, and he really goes down in deep. He gets in his elbows inside this guy, and he goes... Clunk! Goes down the last one. And he turns to the nurse, he says, "Still got what it takes." Poetry. Does anyone actually like poetry? I do a little bit. I wonder if anybody else does. Does anybody else like poetry? Dr. Orlando.
So, I'm not sure that I do. There are poems that I like. There are poets that I like. But I'm not sure that I'm a fan of poetry sort of writ large. Like, I don't know that I could actually, like, sit down and enjoy a tome of poetry.
I'm going to kind of echo what he said, because I agree there are certain poets I like.
Yeah.
But like you, the whole genre of poetry, not necessarily.
Yet I have heard both of you talk about singers and lyrics. What's the difference?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say, to me, poetry, it's kind of like art. I mean, it is art. Of course it's art. But what I mean is I'm making a comparison. Like, if I were to go to the Nelson Atkins Museum, there is one wing I will stay clear of.
Which
the
wing?
Contemporary one.
Oh, gotcha.
Because it's like, I'm sorry, if I look at it and it looks like a kindergartner could have painted it, I don't find any artistic value in that. But I know lots of people who do, and that's fine. But it's the same with the words. There are some poets out there that I look at and I go, huh.
I've got one you would get.
Okay.
Okay, my favorite poetry is about Little Willie, particularly apt in the age of Donald Trump. Willie, in the best of sashes, fell in the fire and was burned to ashes. By and by the room grew chilly, but no one cared to poke up Willie. See, this is my sort of poetry here, okay? Willie, in a fit of gore, nailed his sister to the door. His mother, feeling rather faint, said, "Willie, dear, don't scratch the paint." That's my kind of poetry.
See, for me, it's Edgar Allan Poe. Like, if there's a poet that I can revisit over and over and over and over, it's pretty much any of the poetry of Edgar Allan Poe. But again, it's dark and macabre and just shy of depressed to the point of paranoid.
Quote
so
the
that
Raven,
fits.
nevermore, which is what I swore once I started reading Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, see, no, I absolutely love it. He is hands down my favorite, and I can't even pick which one of his poems is my favorite because I haven't found one that I dislike
Cask of
yet.
Amontillado.
Not a
Not a
poem,
poem.
but yes.
No, okay, it wasn't?
It's a short story.
Well, I like.
But it should have been.
What about the Pit and the Pendulum? Was that a poem?
Short story.
Another short story? Oh. What about
Short story.
Pendulum.
Yeah, I don't know anymore.
Telltale Heart,
Yes.
the Black Cat.
The Hound of the Baskervilles.
That was Arthur
I know.
Conan.
I was going to see who was going to catch that.
You're killing me.
Mr. Taylor, what about you?
Here's one for you. I know you'll like this, particularly Mikey. I like the girls who do. I like the girls who don't. I like the girls who say they will and then decide they won't. But the girls I like most of all, I know you'll think I'm right, are the girls that say they never will, but look as though they might.
That's beautiful. Is that
Okay.
James Joyce?
Isn't that good?
We are quite a pair. You will not find
That was
much
Frost,
culture in
right?
the house. Not a lot. No.
That was
Yeah.
a guy called Max Miller on stage in 1942.
Oh.
And he
We were
was
talking
called the
about that,
Cheeky Chappie, and the comedians, a lot of the comedians, like Mikey, can you imagine being in London in the bombing, right? And you never knew if the manager, the stage manager, would walk on and say, "Ladies and gentlemen, you need to evacuate," because they're actually dropping bombs nearby. And Max Miller used to come on and he'd say things like, funny thing happened to me the other day, ladies. No, stop. No, really. He said, I was running home down the street. He said the Germans were dropping bombs everywhere. He said, I was running home down the street and a guy said to me, where are you going? He said, I'm going home. He said, what, dressed like that? He said, well, I had only got my vest on. You have to think about why was he running down the street? He just left the house.
Yeah.
And he didn't have any pants on.
Right.
Right? He didn't have any pants on.
So
Dressed like that.
All of his jokes creepy,
dressed like
semi-rapey jokes? I'm just curious.
I have a very cheeky attitude. I don't even notice that.
time.
I'm not
It's
even
a
going to
time
comment
period
about you
kind
not
of-
having pants right now. What the hell?
I'm going to guess Dr. Orlando can probably guess who my poet is.
No, I can't. Who's your
Actually,
poet?
probably can.
I'd have to think about it for a while. If you were asking me like who your artist was, yes, I honestly would not have guessed that.
Yeah.
Mr. Rollins.
Yes.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. But I wouldn't
Okay,
have guessed
what is
that.
it?
Henry Rollins. He was the singer of a band called Black Flag, and then the Rollins Band, and he's written numerous books. that I don't know if people would classify it as poetry, but it was kind of in that.
Yeah, no one
I would-
classified him as a stand-up comedian either, but he tried. He tried.
But his poetry, without a doubt, is my favorite because it saved my life, without a doubt. That's why, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I can read his stuff. I can reread that numerous times. Yeah, no problem.
I'm my favorite poet, and no one knows it because I always talk and rhyme, even when I'm not trying, because it happens all the time. Yeah.
That's good.
What about you?
Okay, so
We didn't ask you
I
yet.
think mine seems a little bit more lame, I guess, compared to everybody else's, but I really like Keats.
It's so lame.
Well,
Wow.
one of my favorite poems is called When I Have Fears. And it's not horribly long. It's about a sonnet length. Actually, it is a sonnet. Anyway, I like it because he's just analyzing moments and stages in his life of what he's scared of most before he dies. And at the end, he's basically admitting that after so much anxiety of worrying, he just thinks on it for a minute, and then it fades into oblivion anyway because he knows he doesn't matter. So it's a really good poem, though. I like him a lot.
Keats, when was Keats writing?
Mostly when he was alive.
Oh, good answer, Kath.
Yeah.
Smart ass. I like it.
Smart ass, yeah.
She's-
I'm not allowed anywhere near it.
Smart.
1700s,
What? Yeah, I was gonna say
1800s?
late 17, 18, early 1800s. I'm pretty
So,
sure.
okay, so poetry's, in fact, what we're finding out is that people do really like poetry. The little bits. And,
They do, and it kind of harkens back to what Kath was saying a moment ago, because when you said the thing about musicians, and also
music
what
in
Jane
particular,
said, because
yeah.
it being an art form, just like with any art, you may not like the entire genre of that one art, but there are certain artists in that genre who just really just gravitate, or you
Speak
just
to
really
you.
gravitate towards
Yeah.
them, and they really do speak
I
to
think
you.
I was turned off with Shakespeare in school, and you had to do this and it. But then I discovered a guy called John Betjeman, who was based in London, but he wrote a lot about Cornwall and things like that. We have to say also tonight that we do in fact have an award-winning producer with us, which is very impressive.
Yeah, buddy.
So normally we have foreigners on the panel, but Evo isn't
So, yeah,
here
you're a foreigner,
tonight.
what the hell?
But the question for you: last night was July the 4th, and I never really
Yeah, sorry
Oh
about that,
shit,
buddy.
my rent is due.
Yeah, and Americans were fighting each other again. It was like a civil war, or a repeat of the Somme. What's your favorite story from your childhood? And for Americans, it has to be to do with July the 4th. And for foreigners, about fireworks.
So does your question mean that as an American, my favorite childhood story has to center around July 4th?
What is a favorite story from your childhood to do with July the 4th?
There we go. So what's your favorite childhood July 4th story?
Yes.
There you
Oh.
go.
I'm starting.
Simplified.
Okay, go for it.
I think it's about 6 years old, I guess, around that abouts, and we were at my grandparents' house. And my grandmother is definitely part of the old school hellfire and brimstone generation, raised by Depression parents, etc., etc. Anyway, we were just outside popping works like we always do. And it was almost dark, I remember, because we were getting excited, ready for the big show, going downtown, And I burnt myself. and it wasn't, anything horrible, but a firecracker blew up in my hand because we were throwing them, lighting them and throwing them, which is our favorite thing to do. I got burnt, cried, run into my grandma. Grandma, I burned myself, help me. And my grandma picks me up and sits me on right by the sink. Well, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. She grabs an ice cube from the ice box, which is what you're not really supposed to put ice on it, but she did. And as I'm sitting there crying and crying because it hurts so bad, she says, "It hurts, doesn't it?" And I said, "Yes, it does." And she goes, "Well, just make sure you're a good girl, because that's what it would feel like if you were burning in hell." All over your body. All over your body.
Yeah.
And I stopped and I looked at her and she goes, "Just be a good girl so you don't burn in hell and everything will be fine."
That's fucked
I
up.
love your grandma.
Yeah.
I will never forget that. Ever, ever, ever. And,
No.
years later, I told her that and she said to me, "I never said that." Mm-hmm. Excuse me.
It's funny they have a
You
selective memory.
traumatized me. Yes, you did. I was scared. Like forever. And she goes, "Well, I guess the lesson worked then. I don't remember saying that." That's mine.
Jason.
Mine is also dealing with my grandparents. We used to go down to my grandparents for 4th of July. And one year, and I had to been, I was probably maybe 3, maybe. And one year, it was me and my mother and my father, because they were still married. And my half-brother was there, and his mother was there. And all of the adults, it was lunch, and they'd eaten lunch, and they're having little after lunch drinks because it's holidays, whatever. And so they've had a few beers, what have you. And my mother looks at my brother's mother, and because she got up to go to the kitchen, and she said, "Hey Janet, do you want some water?" And this is the only thing I remember of this. And Janet looks at my mom and goes, Yeah, sure, why not? Fish fucking it, don't they? And I didn't understand it, but I remember seeing all of the adults just lose it. I mean, just laughing their asses off. And then as I got older, I was like, oh my God, that was so hilarious. That's probably the earliest memory I have. It's just that and just the whole joyous moment of everybody just kind of celebrating and just having that shared laughter together.
Dr. Orlando.
I have no significant memories of July 4th. Grew up a Jehovah's Witness. We didn't celebrate holidays.
Ah.
So, yeah.
You didn't get to see fireworks displays or
Well, we
anything?
saw fireworks displays,
not
but they
up close.
weren't. Yeah, they weren't.
So how did you shield yourself from celebrating if they were all around? Like, if you can't celebrate, then you can't watch a firework.
I honestly, I don't know that at any point I sat down and watched a fireworks display in my childhood.
Yo, it was just forced into your life.
Do you do it now?
Yes, I've
You
taken
take
my
your kids?
Yes.
Has that been fun?
It is, and especially to see the amount of excitement that the fireworks generate. That's like fantastic.
Excitement and absolutely crazy behavior on the behalf of children.
You know, my kids aren't actually like going crazy. They're so transfixed by watching the fireworks that they're. It's like one of the 3 times during the year that they're sitting still for a second. So that's a good thing.
And then
Yeah.
in most cases, it seems to be the adults who really partake in the crazy behavior and do very stupid things.
Hold my beer.
Yeah, hold my beer. I'm going to go like this, lose a finger.
Well, in that case, you said it.
Oh, you lost a finger?
So 1960 something, we're at my father's bestest friend's parents' house, and they had a big crate of
This
fireworks.
was not 4th of July, by the way.
This is November the 5th. in
Yeah, you
England.
guys don't celebrate
Bonfire
4th of
night.
July,
Yeah.
right?
No,
You just
we-
call that Tuesday.
We just say you're welcome.
Actually,
And-
a question on like Guy Fawkes Day. Do you actually blow up fireworks for
Yeah.
celebration?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's November.
That's what I
November
the
asked that.
And,
remember.
The 5th of November, that's why I asked.
So we're all down by the house watching this display, which is Uncle Tom and my father setting stuff off. Now, of course, they've both been smoking like chimneys. They'd have fags dangling out their mouth and all that sort of thing. And they'd have had
to tell you how that translates for the American
and
listeners.
they'd have had a few beers, to say the least, right? And behind them was a big lake, which was a bomb had dropped in the garden during the war. Anyway, somehow something got in the crate, and up it went. Right, and there was a little it was like a sort of patio out behind this big house with a garden wall, right? And I remember my father and Tom Rose literally diving over the top of this garden wall and grabbing my father grabbed my brother and I while this thing exploded everywhere. It was like a pyrotechnic.
Just like
thing.
people running from an explosion in a movie.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
very like
wow.
that. I don't remember it. No, I can remember. I mean, I can tell you how high, what the little wall was made of brick, and there were flagstones on top of it, and I can remember my father coming over the top of it. But most of all, I could hear my mother shouting at the top of her voice, "Peter!" which is what she used to do when she was cross with him. She would shout, "Peter!" Kathleen.
Mine doesn't have to do with the fireworks, but my family used to have a big party. We lived in the city, but we would have a party at my grandparents' lake in the country on 4th of July, invite everybody they ever knew. So there were over 100 people there who would come out there. And my father, halfway through the afternoon, somewhere found a big black snake. And he wrapped this thing around him under his shirt and had the head of the snake poking out between a couple of buttons because he was not scared of snakes. Okay?
Clearly.
And he terrified everybody at that party. It was hilarious. It was
The
wonderful.
snake just let him do it?
Oh, sure.
That's awesome.
He didn't have much choice.
Your uncle's like, oh, you're not going anywhere, buddy.
I know.
Mikey.
It's funny.
Always, our family's always been a big firework family. We always bought plenty of fireworks. Not so much in the past few years, but so far it's been pretty steady. But I'll always remember, I don't know what year it was, 1997 probably, when my Uncle Rob had about $100 left of fireworks still to shoot off. It was 11 o'clock at night, time to go to bed. He just places all of them into a brown liquor store bag and puts it in the fire pit and lets them all go off. No injuries, but a very spectacular time. And from then on, I realized that is what you're supposed to do when you don't have any more time to shoot off fireworks, because those things are just going to become duds in a few months.
Except that they are, if you got kids around, they will go too close and they will.
It was in a field.
It
was in a field. It was at least 100 yards away. And me being a kid at that time and the way I was raised, there was real no problem if I was harmed in this process. There really wasn't. I was just harmed a lot by random things, so we were pretty used to it. And
I do have another story I can share with you.
I'll tell you later about the snake bite. At this other 4th of July party.
When my parents bought the house that they lived in for my childhood, you have to understand that this house was built before the First World War. And it had kitchen gardens with it, and old greenhouses and things like that. So my brother and I are poking around in one of these greenhouses and we found a tea chest. And in the tea chest was some straw, and on top of the straw was a dead rat. So
Can I interrupt your story for just a second?
Cool.
What's a tea chest?
A chest that you transport tea from India in. It's a chest that's about 3 foot, 4 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot square. Anyway, so
how many here have seen a tea chest before?
I have. Oh, there's 3 of us.
So for some reason we got the rat out.
I still don't know what it is.
And a bit further down in the straw, we saw the wings of what looked like a small bomb.
Uh-oh.
So we went and got father, because in England, boys, particularly in the 50s and 60s, you're brought up that if you see something like that, you go and get your parents or a policeman. And so we went and got father, and father pronounced that it was an incendiary bomb. Right? An incendiary bomb is about, 2 foot long, 3 or 4 inches across, wings at one end. And it's magnesium, basically. And the idea is that it's supposed to set fire to the roof of a house or whatever, car or building or something. And for some reason, there was an incendiary bomb in this tea chest. And I'm not making it up, because I'd have put it somewhere else. That's where it was. So father is having lots of bonfires in the garden, because they were chopping back the garden from Victorian days. So he decides, don't tell your mother. And he buried this thing in the middle of one of the garden bonfires. Now, if anybody ever has tried burning laurel, it burns very, very hot, very, very quickly. So it was buried in there, and set fire to the bonfire, and off it goes. And Simon,
his father was a racing car driver. Need I say
my
more?
brother and I are standing watching this, waiting for it to explode. Nothing happened. And it burnt down and down and down and down. And then eventually it's time to go to bed, 8 o'clock at night or something like that. And this is on my children's life. As we were walking back into the house, into where the housekeeper lived,
Were you
just
walking
going
in slow motion?
We were walking in. I can remember walking around, and it went off, right? And it blew a hole in the ground, and it blew the top of the remains of this bonfire to pieces. And I taught you earlier, what was the next thing I heard? Exactly. My father is up there above us now going, I remember that. So, what would you put in a time capsule, and how long would you want it sealed for? What would you put in a time capsule, and how long would you want it sealed for? Let's start with Jason.
Honestly, I would put nothing in a time capsule. I just don't see the...
So you would just have a time capsule just with nothing in it?
No, I wouldn't even have a time capsule.
Oh, just no time capsule. So yeah, fuck the question. No time capsule.
No, you gotta have a time. I'd have a time capsule, and I would put a good bottle of booze in it. And the time I would have it sealed
Here's
for
some
would be about
scotch.
10 minutes. And then it should be opened and consumed.
Why don't you just keep the bottle of booze? Just
Well, this is after I'm dead, sweetie.
Wait a
It's supposed
second.
to be opened. Sorry, 10 minutes after I die.
you're going to die, and then 10 minutes
was
they'll
like,
put
she
it
just can't
in.
wait.
What?
Well,
wait a
at
second.
first I wasn't planning to die at all, but I've got to have them open the time capsule.
So I saw a story on Facebook, I guess maybe when Facebook first became publicly available. And it was my thought of the coolest current idea of a time capsule. A guy, again, this is before Facebook had games or any of that other stuff that makes it so goddamn annoying right now. A guy was having a baby, and he started a Facebook account for his baby.
He was actually
Guy
having
was
a baby.
because
This
this
is
has
news.
happened. There's
Well,
been
that's
3 or
why it
4 of
was
them.
no. I'm sorry, his wife was having a baby. And
I want to
he
give
was-
you to give credit where credit is due.
Yes.
That's all.
So you're not a fan of husband saying we're having a baby?
No.
Yeah.
No. I see a guy who says, we're pregnant. I'm saying, no, you're not.
Oh, are you abstaining from drinking this whole time?
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, he started a Facebook account for his daughter, and he started it essentially from the moment he started the. When he found out that she was pregnant, so he would post things.
Daughter's pregnant now.
I'm sorry, his wife's pregnancy.
Right.
He from the moment he found out about his daughter's conception, he would post just thoughts that he was having that day about her life, what she could expect, the different kinds of life lessons that he wanted to teach her, and his goal. I don't know if he's done it yet or not, but his goal was to give it to his daughter once she became of an age where she could, understand everything that's there.
73.
75.
Yeah, okay.
But I thought that was a super, super cool idea. I had not had any kids at the time, and I thought immediately, I should do this for whenever I have kids. And then I thought, you know what, I'm way too lazy for that. But I still like the idea of having a memento that you could pass on to your kids or your kids' kids that kind of are a moment in time, a picture of what you were experiencing, what you were thinking when you were going through something that you hope they go through at the same time. So for me, if I was going to have a time capsule, it would be something along those lines. Something like, open this when you have a kid that's graduating from high school, or open this when you get your first venereal disease, or just just whatever those milestones are in your life that you would like to have some words of wisdom that your kids or your grandkids or your just people that follow you might find something interesting or informative about. Outside of that, there aren't things that I would put in there outside of literal pictures. But that would be it.
I would put in a case of toilet paper, some antiseptic, probably something to drink, like you were suggesting, a bottle of aspirin or maybe Tylenol,
Penicillin.
and have it opened in 50 years.
Ah.
Because by then, the zombie apocalypse will have occurred, and people will desperately appreciate all of
Yeah,
those
that's just a
things.
bug out bag. What?
By the way, before I move on, I just want to explain something, because apparently I caused a stir with the whole drinking while pregnant thing, etc., etc. But I just want everybody to understand one thing. I don't know who the dumb bitches of the world are who say that it is a beautiful and wonderful experience, because it is the most wretched experience you could ever possibly imagine. To become a human incubator is not fun. And it just cracks me up, when people say certain things. I'm just like, no,
By the time you reach
You are saying that the
8
marketing
months, you're saying,
job is a
get this thing
complete
out of
marketing
me.
job.
Hells yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But don't you
yeah.
realize how sexy you are when you're 7 or 8
I'm-
months
I'm-
pregnant?
Oh, you
And
have got to
lumbering
be
around
shitting
like a
me.
house.
Can't breathe. You can't even bend down to put on your tennis shoes.
So I'm
God,
curious. How many kids have you had?
Just two, and
Just
that
two?
was plenty.
So were they both miserable experiences?
my first one was. I didn't puke per se, but I felt nauseated always. Always, always, always. I always had to go to bed by 10 p.m. because if I didn't, it would start this ridiculous motion inside me that made me feel like I was going to puke. Things like this. I didn't feel bad per se with the second child, but she got so big so fast that I was in a constant state of I can't breathe.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so my wife, you've not seen her, but she's a very, very short torso, and so the babies. She's had two, and the babies don't have anywhere to go but up into her chest
Thank
and
you.
out. And
Lungs
so,
and heart.
yeah,
Sleeping in a recliner for months
and
at
so,
a time.
Yeah, she was like that physical pain that she dealt with. Like, I hope to never experience something like that in my life. But having said that, she very, very much enjoyed the first child. In fact, we wouldn't have had a second child if she had hated the experience of pregnancy as
much as the second.
as the second.
So, and the plan was to put one of the children in the time capsule. We are asking questions about time capsules.
Oh, we moved on away from that a long, long time ago. We were having a conversation now.
Well, that goes back to the time capsule, though. And you said you were going to put your thoughts for your children. You realize that whatever age they were, they're going to open this thing and say, "Oh, Dad, Dad." That is such a dad thing to say.
I'm sorry, maybe those are your children. My children are adorable and perfect in
all
every
children.
way.
That's 'cause they're not
their
teenagers
father's
yet, are they?
words of wisdoms in exactly the same way.
My mother, who liked to shout Peter when she was cross with my father, which would have anything to do with, bombs, motor racing, boats, children, flooding the house, setting fire to the house on 3 occasions,
She
I
didn't
think.
like that?
She would.
Imagine.
But
one thing
your mom
she
must
did
drank.
do is
She must have drank a lot.
when my
They're all normal
eldest son,
English activities.
my eldest son was born, she produced a newspaper for that day. She had somehow she managed to have an announcement placed in one of the national dailies and produced this newspaper. And it was for those people who remember the Iranian embassy had been taken over by terrorists, and the SAS went in. It was that day, or the photographs of it, and that was the day that James was born. And so we still have that. And I've bought newspapers, which I've kept for the other 2 boys, and I know perfectly well that they're not going to be interested in them at all for about another 40 years. But they will be interested in them one day.
So that's what you put in a time capsule?
That's my time
That's
capsule.
a good idea.
Yeah.
So one just kind of on a related note to what you just said, I just recently went and internet review, just wasting time on the internet, and I looked up the top song for the year that I was born. Mm-hmm. Have you all done this yet? Is this something
I'm not.
Okay.
What was the top song?
For me, 1971 was Maggie May by
Rod
Sir
Stewart.
Rod.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, I can, if you give me a minute, I can tell you what yours and Kath's is, because I looked you guys up because I used that on
You mean
the website.
they had music back then?
Do you know the name of the guy who was playing the mandolin?
For Maggie May?
Yes.
Oh,
No, you don't. You can't possibly.
Yes, I do, but I can't think of it. It's
He'll come
Roy?
up with halfway through the next subject.
no. Yeah, come back to me. I might. It might pop up into my head. But yes, I absolutely know who it is. I just can't think of the name.
What does he do?
Plays the mandolin.
No. So you don't know the guy.
No? What else does he do then?
What
For our
else does he
listeners,
do?
you all can't see this. There's actually people on our panel now on their phones
All right,
looking
who
up.
is it? Who is
John
it?
Peel.
Yep.
His name was, and he was
Looking up
one.
what the
he
song
was.
was.
He was one of the DJs that came across from the pirate radio ships to join the BBC. And if you watch them playing Maggie May, you will see John Peel playing it.
I'm trying.
Yes.
And he was the guy.
So he was a DJ rather than a
Yeah.
player, really?
He used to play the heavy music.
Okay.
So if you ever watched Pirate Radio, the film Pirate Radio, he was the guy who was really quiet and like that, man, And when the ship was going down, he went down after some of his albums, which is supposedly a true story. Anyway, so I've lost track of where we're at. One thing we did want to do here on the podcast, and we don't have Evo with it. We're going to wait until Evo joins us again.
My favorite pregnancy story.
Mine was Rod Stewart too. Tonight's gonna be the night. I hate that song.
Mikey, you have a pregnancy story when you were pregnant?
No, I thought that I would stuff a what's it called?
Hello.
Turducken.
Time capsule?
Time capsule. I would stuff a time capsule with another time capsule.
Oh,
Stuffed
tricky.
with.
Another time capsule.
No, a double stuffed burrito.
Oh.
Stuffed with another time capsule. See, there's so many layers on this that when whoever opens it up in the future, they will not know what it is. They will not question what it is. They will not be able to research what it is. They will simply say, "What the fuck were the people thinking back then?"
Okay.
That's all I
That's
want.
the reaction you're looking
I'm
for.
thinking that
Yes.
right now.
Well, Kathleen's daughter, Christine, who's very good at these sort of things and keeping things for a long time, she's very good with Danish pastries, isn't she?
Yes. When she puts them on top of a shelf and forgets about them for a whole semester.
In a Ziploc bag.
Yes.
It's amazing, the colours. It's
Yes.
like a piece of artwork. Blues and reds and greens. It's just quite incredible.
My first condom, my first rock poster where I banged at, and also the condom there.
Where are we going with this, Mikey?
And the picture
Oh, in the time capsule.
in the time capsule.
Okay, Mikey is
Just a
quite
bunch of
tall. He has a
condoms.
beard. He
Just a
does
bunch of
stand-up
used
comedy.
condoms.
He comes from a very wealthy family, independently wealthy,
This is
and
not true.
he's not got laid for at least 6 months.
It's a long time.
So
Actually, no, that's
Is
not
it
true.
all starting to make sense now, ladies and
I got
we
gentlemen?
laid
don't want to
Don't
know,
tell.
Mikey.
Whoa.
Very recently, in fact.
TMI.
In fact, I went to
No.
proclaim it to the world.
No.
Proclaim it to the world. I am not hopeless.
And the show's over.
I thought you were gonna name drop this poor person.
So, the final question for tonight's Wednesday night undressed will come after this. There is a new drink in town. It's called an Evanoff, and we will be taking a little break during our podcasts to try different drinks that people haven't had before. I'm thinking of an Evanoff. I'm thinking of a Bundy. There's one for you. A number of others that people haven't come across, and we will
The
be trying.
creamsicle.
Pardon me.
The creamsicle.
Yes.
If you
That's that
take
code.
No. If you
Is
take
this something to do with
you take-
Mikey's
you take
nether
a white
regions?
Russian. You take a white Russian, and you make it with orange flavored
Racist.
vodka.
Right.
It tastes just like a creamsicle from you when you were a kid. It is dangerously
Were they called
delicious.
dreamsicles?
No creamsicle.
Orange
the
on
orange
Russian.
vanilla, right?
Trump.
Oh, you got it. You love a Trump cocktail.
So what?
July the
Orange and
4th,
Russian.
you Americans.
Russia.
July the 4th, you Americans were hanging out with your friends or doing what you were doing, and you talk about stories, and you remember when old Uncle so-and-so was here, and Dad used to do this, and we did this, that, and the other. So my question is this, that a couple of people I know have passed away unexpectedly. And if something happened to you, what would you like your legacy to be? If something happened to you, what would you like your legacy to be, Kathleen?
I've been trying to think of this, and I'm not sure I even want people to think of me. I know it's kind of weird, but I don't particularly want people dwelling on me. I'd rather they just get on with things.
So when Evo was here, we talked about this once before on the podcast. Do you guys remember the discussion of the necrologues? This was like one of the weird things that I found in Eastern Europe. They
Okay.
were just not necessarily in like cemeteries. You would just walk by like different boards, and people
Yeah.
would have like poems or just remembrances for people that had passed. And it was I remember like talking about it here on the podcast, saying this was a little
Creepy to you?
creepy's probably a little strong, but it seemed to be an unhealthy almost fixation with the passing of someone. And I remember Ivo telling me in Bulgaria that pretty impressed about like people that had been dead for like 500 years, still having necrologues written to them or about them.
How big a part of Bulgaria is covered with these things?
If you've ever been on a college campus and seen the pin boards where people post for the new sofa or the used sofa, it's like that. Just multiple places around, and it doesn't matter if you're in a big city or a little city. If there's like something that's got enough room to have a necrologue stamped on it, it's there until somebody comes and pulls it down.
I guess a part of civilization is keeping knowledge and feelings going from one generation to the next. So
Right.
doing this sort of thing is part of the civilizing process, but I've never been very civilized, so...
What about you, Dr. Orlando? I mean, your kids, you've got a little boy and a little girl, haven't you?
Yeah.
And so add 20 years to their lives, and you got run over by a bus or something.
Right.
What would you like them to remember? What would you like your legacy to be? You've told me already once, so I'm just wondering whether you remember or whether you...
Well, I don't know what I told you, but I can tell you what I have always told anyone. Like, if you ask me what I want to have on my tombstone,
My name is a killing word.
my name is a killing word. No.
That's what it should be.
That fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Here lies Dr.
Your
Orlando.
kids would be standing in front and going, "What the fuck?"
It would be, here lies a reasonable person. Like, I want my kids, I want everybody that knows me, it is important that for me, reasonableness, rationality, compassion, these are the things that I want to be a part of my
Your legacy.
my legacy. Yeah. That's it. Those are the things that are hands down most important to me. I don't care if I have a lot of money. Well, that's not true. I want lots of money. But what is most important is those things, specifically reasonability, topping a list. Is that what I told you?
No, you said you wanted to make sure that your kids look back and said that you'd provided them with a decent education.
I must have been high. I didn't ever say anything like that.
I would never have said that.
Jason, what would you like your legacy to be?
Pretty simple. Just that he tried. That's it. I mean, he tried to be a good man. He tried to help people. He tried to leave the world in a better place than he found it. That's it. Just he tried. That's really all I need.
Mikey?
Then right underneath that, he killed a man
sorry.
in Reno just to watch him die.
Oh, that's got to be that. Oh, hell yeah.
What sort of, if you fell under a bus, what sort of legacy would you like your friends? You fell under a bus last week, and we're going to do this, and we said, well, we have to say poor old Mikey fell under a bus, but he was a good old boy, apart from when he...
Never meaning no harm.
Apart from when he besides the time.
Never mean
Besides
no
the
harm.
time, how much time do we have? By the way,
Beats all you never saw.
if it's besides the time, then there's way too much more than the legacy. If it's the legacy, it's he was a good friend to drink beer with. And he was a friend who drank a lot of beer.
Making the way.
His are inextricably mixed up with beer. And I'm surprised he didn't put any beer in this time capsule.
Yeah, why didn't they just cremate my body into beer?
Okay.
No, you just filter the ash out. Like, it's just part of the brewing process.
You can do that.
Actually,
In fact,
I'm not making this up. I think there actually is a brewery in Europe that did that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like they actually did.
They called it
like
Soylent Green?
somebody in their will, they put "I want to be made into beer," and the brewery did it, and the family drank their relative.
huh? See, that's. I want to be cannibalized. Essentially, that is
So you
what
want people
my.
to think of you
Don't
after
quote me
you're
on that,
dead
but
with this
I kind of remember hearing a story about that.
Yeah, no.
What's wrong with cannibalizing your loved ones?
I think
If that was
is
their
really
wish,
the quote
if
of the
that
podcast.
was their dying wish, what's wrong with cannibalizing your loved ones?
Okay.
If your dying loved ones said, "I want you to eat me," would you do it?
Hey, I want to make certain. You do not consider us your loved ones, right?
Eat me. How about you, Mr. Taylor?
I don't want any
What
of the
is
hairy
your
bits.
legacy?
Yeah, what is your legacy?
My legacy, he wasn't such a bad old guy, you know.
All right.
Would you say that he was just a good old
Oh boy,
No, don't do that.
never
for
mean
God's
it
sake.
no harm.
No, I mean, I don't really know. I've never had the self-confidence to be able to look back on when one was, fighting in the war and like that, then subsequently with the motor racing and the deep sea yachting, and then, of course, there's all the porn films. What does one look
That
back
sounds like a good old boy to me.
I think really it was the bank robbery. That was the one they never caught me for. And
Nice.
I feel that's my legacy.
Playing Kid Rock at his funeral.
Have we done everybody?
Oh, I hope so.
I don't have a good answer anyway, so
Oh.
I really don't. I thought I've been thinking about it, and I just don't have a.
Pure
I don't have
lies
anything.
worm food. Is that all you want?
But I think
No,
it's
I
interesting,
guess-
isn't it, when you say, with Jane, for instance, it could be, well, you're a mum, obviously. Are you an interesting person?
I think I am.
Are you
okay,
going to
I
stab
guess
somebody now?
If I
She just picked up a knife.
if I
Oh, God.
if I really wanted anything left behind, I would definitely want my children to know that I'm not as harsh and hard as I seem. I just had really hard circumstances, and therefore I wasn't a mum. I was a mother. You know what I mean? I'm like, I just, I don't know. They were just so close in my age. Sometimes I treated them like my siblings. Oh, stop it. You're
Is that
fine.
sad? That's sad.
It is
Isn't
very
that
sad. And
it is sad.
and when my grandson, now he's 4, and I'm just like, come on, buddy, let's go do this and everything. And my oldest daughter looks at me and she goes, why are you so sweet with him? and when he throws a fit, I just kind of tap at him and I go, hey, I don't like that. We're not going to do that, okay? That's not how we're going to roll. And he'll, oh, okay.
But it has to be said that daughters aren't much good. I had this with one of my granddaughters the other day,
Useless
and then
bitches.
they're useless. This kid had been throwing tantrums all afternoon, and she couldn't handle it, so I just showed her my tummy, and she started laughing. End of
make you laugh.
tantrum.
Yeah, it's really good that way.
I hear Uncle Jesse's good at raising kids. That's what I hear.
Oh, God.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you've been listening to Wednesday Night Undressed. Yes. So I want to thank the team tonight. The Magic Dr. Orlando, the indefatigable Kathleen Taylor, the legendary marvel of sophistication, and naughty Jane Carter. Yes, Jason Springer now. Mikey Pokorny, who is about to leave us to get in his Rolls Royce and head back off to do stand-up in some large comedy theatre somewhere.
Oh yeah, this chick who I super liked on Tinder just matched with me. I know what I'm doing tonight.
Yes.
Yes.
You're going to cry and masturbate alone?
Curl up in the fetal position afterwards.
That's on the back burner, but yeah, I'm sure.
That's plan B.
No, ordering wings
At-
is the second is plan B, and then C, yes, is crying. Go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
And I'd like to also thank our engineer tonight. Award-winning engineer. He won the award this morning, which is really amazing. It's
Tell
a
us
huge,
what that award was again.
huge award, which in fact he got for emergency work that he did with emergency people. This happened when there was a flood recently and a typhoon all at the same time, and he waded out and rescued a Labrador puppy It was a sight to be seen, I have to say. It was quite amazing how he did it. And of
None
course
of that's
there was
true,
the
no.
mother and her 2 babies as well, who were holding on to the Labrador puppy. And Eric, the producer, rescued both of them as well.
Man, you better pull up your boots, man. The
he
whole
was-
shit's getting pretty high
I
in
know,
here.
it was I tell you, it was amazing.
Jeremy, you
And
also
off-
won the award too. We're partner with our local emergency management. We take it seriously. That's why we got
do.
it, and I'm proud of it.
Yes, so no, it was a neat thing. Neither of us expected at all in front of thousands
Well
of
done,
people.
both of you.
We got these awards. And,
Well done to you, Eric. I'm not
Yeah.
too sure about Jeremy still.
I was just
I don't know,
trying
I
to be polite,
deserve
that's
it,
all.
really. And of course, we have to thank the producer and chief engineer, all sorts of things.
Can we
And
just
then
say how
just
honored
so
we are to be with you, sir?
We are
Thank you.
humbled to be in his presence. Interestingly, his wife came in just now and then left, which says quite a lot. Neil Rasmussen. Oh, yes.
Stand up, will you?